according to this New York Times article, 2014 was the hottest year on record, and global warming denialists have certainly had a lot to say about it in the comment section of the New York Times. But there's certainly no denying the science. And I'm joined in studio by Project 90 by 2030's Gray Maguire, who's going to speak to us a little bit more about the science behind this particular article. Gray, thank you so much for joining us.
Indeed, thank you for having me, Jerusha.
Now, as I mentioned, there are global warming denialists who've offered all sorts of explanations as to why 2014 was the hottest recorded year, but science tells us that global warming is actually a very real thing.
Yeah, actually, for us, we have not really been taking that much notice of the data that's coming out of this 2014 hottest ever year in history of recorded weather. The major reason being is that 1 year's worth of data really doesn't make that much of a significant change. What it is that we've been trying to emphasize for as long as the climate change negotiations have been going on, which is 20 years, is that we need to be looking at longer term trends. And if you look at the longer term trends, really we are seeing unequivocal evidence that there is dramatic climate change that is starting to take place and that has been taking place over the last 50 years or so. And for us in South Africa, we have a lot of reason to be concerned about that, not just for ourselves, but also for our neighbors to the north and for the rest of humanity as well.
Gray, I want you to take us through this map and tell us, what are we looking at here? There are certain zones that are redder than others, that are hotter than others. So what is this?
Well, this map here is it's a very static map, unfortunately, and it doesn't really allow you to be able to see how it is that climate trends have been changing over time. But what we have started to see is that since the late 1970s, we've started to see that year on year, we are not getting any cooling, and that the amount of times that you actually see months that are actually cooler than previous periods basically ended in 1976. So we've seen this steady increase in temperature, and what this map reflects here is the areas that have seen much higher levels of increase, as well as some areas that have had a small degree of decrease. Now, one of the important things to bear in mind when you're looking at a climatological map is that climate science isn't a uniform thing. You don't end up, as a result of having, as it stands globally, we've had about a 0.65 to 0.7 degree temperature increase globally. That's in the global atmosphere. But that's not uniformly spread around the globe. So if you look at the South African case, for example, if you look here, it actually looks like we had a fairly moderate amount of temperature increase. But that's not really true. Our national average over the period from about 1970 through to now has been an increase of actually 1.5 times more than that international average of 0.65 degrees. So we're seeing much higher levels of temperature increase than the global average. And that's the way that it works on an international basis. What really you see is that your temperature increase gets moderated by the oceans. The oceans are the single biggest both temperature and carbon sink on the planet. So they regulate our temperatures really well. And in areas like Cape Town, for example, we don't get to see such marked increases as you would do in the interior of the country. And that's something that applies globally. You do start to see some areas that there have been decreases in temperature. In the eastern seaboard of the United States, for example, there's been a very large downflow of cool air coming from the Arctic as a result of a variety of different climatic factors. But a lot of the things that determine the way that temperature operates are things like oceanic currents as well. So at the moment you can see that the area across Western Europe has been here. You can see that it's had an increase in temperature. But if we were to have a stop in the thermohaline cycle, which is something that could realistically happen as a result of the melting of the polar ice caps, what could end up happening is that the Gulf Stream itself will stop. And given that the UK is on the same latitude as Siberia, there's a ready possibility in those regions and in Western Europe, you will actually see a massive decrease in average temperatures. The point about global warming is that yes, as a whole, the globe is warming, but what is actually happening is climate chaos. That is the problem. That is the thing that we're really concerned about, is that we are going into a period where we're no longer able to rely on stable temperatures to be able to allow us to be able to farm the way that we farmed in the past and have the same kinds of transport networks that we've had. Our whole way of life will have to change to be able to accommodate a new climate regime.